Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we are talking about Minding the Gap. But before that, we're going to go over HBO's The White Lotus, Marvel's What If, the first two episodes, and the Criterion Announcements for November 2021. So, join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me is Mike. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I am doing well. Thank you for asking, Chris. It feels good to have your voice in the intro again.
Feels good to be here. Feels right. Like nice and comfy.
Does feel right.
And the guy that's been keeping that that seat warm for me, Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I don't know if that was any shade thrown at my intro, saying that Chris, it feels good to have him in here.
Your intros are beautiful, Justin.
Okay, good. Just want to check. Well, then I am doing excellent in that case.
Awesome. Well, that was awkward. If this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which is a Criterion Collection focused episode that we like to do every other week, where we review a film from, you guessed it, the Criterion Collection. Before we get into the main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk recent news and things that we've been watching. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can still listen. And then we will move into our main review. This week it is Minding the Gap, spine number 1061.
Oof.
I know, it's a lot of movies.
Yeah. And I don't know if you said this, so sorry if I'm being repetitive, but the Criterion films that we review on the Criterion episodes are voted on by the listeners. At the end of this episode, at the end of all our Criterion episodes, we'll be doing polls where we each pick a movie and then we put that poll out there. And if you want to vote in that, the best place to do that is our Twitter account at Casual Cinecast. We also have Facebook and Instagram accounts at Casual Cinecast as well, but the polls are exclusively on our Twitter account. If you want to send us any questions about the movies we're reviewing or any topics to discuss, anything at all, send DMs to any of those accounts. You can also email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, you like the show, go onto whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, whether iTunes, Spotify, whatever it is. And where possible, give us a 5-star rating. Let other people know that we're a good show worth checking out.
Yes, please and thank you. Okay, and with that, I think we are ready to just get into News on the March. So let's do that now.
Yes.
News on the March!
Okay, Justin. So why don't you get us started this week? What do you want to talk about in News on the March?
Well, I want to repeat a topic that we talked about not that long ago because it was a show on HBO that has come to the end of its first season, so I kind of wanted to recap it. And that, of course, is The White Lotus.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
yes.
I talked about this a few weeks ago. It's just to recap for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's kind of a dark comedy, almost a murder mystery sort of thing. And it's been going on HBO. It's just 6 episodes long. The last episode aired this last weekend, and it's over now, and I've seen it all, so I just wanted to recap and say that I think the show's pretty great. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with all the characters, even the ones that aren't very likable, and there's a lot of those, I think.
Yes.
But it's a fun show. I know that since I talked about it last, Mike, you have watched all of it as well. So do you want to chime in on your thoughts?
Yeah, so I actually watched all of this within 2 days because I knew you would want to talk about it. And I was like, well, I want to join in on that too. Like once I started it, I was like, well, I don't want him to like be hampered by my inability to like chime in. So yeah, I also really enjoyed this, and it's much less of a murder mystery than I thought whenever you originally told me about it. This show's got a lot on its mind, and I actually found a lot of the dynamics between class and race and all that stuff to be like really fascinating and really smart and handled in like a really careful way, to where each character has this gray area where you understand where they're coming from when they have a point, and you understand why they act the way they do. Like, there are no... I wouldn't say there are any straight-up villains.
No, not at all.
There are just people who are extremely self-destructive or extremely selfish, but it always rings true. Like, you know people like this. You can imagine people like this. And I think the show takes a lot of careful time and effort to make sure that it handles this in like a really thoughtful and artful way. This subject matter of, especially between, you know, race and class and all that stuff. So I don't know. I like you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think your point about the murder mystery thing is true. I think that's kind of the hook into the show, because the opening scene sets up that you know, it's kind of we see something that's happened after the events of the show, and then the rest of the show is like the flashback before that. So it kind of sets up that's the hook, right? That somebody was murdered or killed or something, and we know that that's going to happen at some point. But that very much becomes something that's in the back of your mind. That's sort of the backdrop in a way, and not very focused on. Because like there are times where you, at least probably like during the third episode or so, that I kind of forgot that at some point someone was going to die.
Yeah, and it's almost like not even a proper murder mystery, because the murder, or the crime in question, I guess I should say, there's no process where there's like the whodunit part of it all.
Yeah.
Like there's no detective that comes in and is like, all right, everyone, line up and let me ask you questions, you know? So it's really fascinating. And yeah, the show has so much more on its mind than just that little hook, you know? It's like what it's saying by the end of it, like, it's just, there's so much to unpack, you know, like the conversations that I've been having about this show, and, you know, which characters did the right thing here and which characters are in the wrong here, and who's right, if anyone, you know, it's all just really rewarding, I find, in this show. Like, you can almost dive into any character and find flaws and errors with what they're doing and how they act and how they look at the world. There are just no good guys and there are no bad guys, and I really appreciate that. It seems really honest, and I mean, there are some bad guys overall, but yeah, I think humans are, only because humans are bad.
Yeah,
I think.
And quite often, I think what the show does is kind of tackle the circumstances that lead us to be who we are, and sometimes that makes you a bad person, but it's not necessarily that person is choosing to be bad. It's just that's what they know. That's where they came from.
Like, the culture is bad. The culture is to blame almost, or something. I don't know, but it's all really handled in a very thoughtful way, and
it is.
I just continually just kept being impressed. And also, I gotta say, there are some wonderful performances in this show. Like, Steve Zahn is great. The actor, I'm looking his name up right now, who plays the concierge, who plays a character named Armand.
Oh, he's so good.
Murray Bartlett is just, give me more of that guy in everything. He is so, like, just, he's so good. With little nuances, and oh man, it's just, what a cast.
Yeah, you know? So much charisma, so charming. And Chris, I don't mean to leave you out of this. We're kind of talking over here, but you've seen part of it, right?
Yeah, I don't think.
Show?
I've heard that like the second episode is kind of the one that pulls you in, and I haven't seen the second episode, so I'm still just on the first one right now. What you guys say does sound like it ties in really well with our movie this week, Minding the Gap.
Yeah. It doesn't not.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, at least we'll talk about that later. but yeah, Murray Bartlett is fantastic. I mean, he's so much charisma. He's so charming. Pretty handsome, in my opinion. Just like a all around easy guy to like watch just do whatever, you know.
Alexandra Daddario, she's really good in it.
She's really good. I enjoy Jennifer Coolidge. I think she's super funny.
Oh man, yeah, Jennifer Coolidge is the unspoken like MVP in this show. I think maybe not even unspoken, but I think she is just like doing the best work that I've seen her do
Yeah, best work in a while for sure. Like,
yeah, and her character is just sympathetic but also painful to watch. She's just like she balances that like train wreck quality in such like an honest and unflattering way. Is just hats off, hats off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm
Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria, which is a show that I've only seen one episode of, but I know of her, and she's really good in this too, as like the trying to be woke rich girl.
Okay, is she the daughter or the friend?
She's the daughter.
Okay, yeah, she's fantastic. She did such an interesting performance.
At being a horrible person.
yeah. And was it Fred Heischinger, the son? I think is really good.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Like once I started, I was like, man, I'm so glad I can just binge this.
Oh, I know. It's been hard to wait week to week. I think I've been week to week for about 3 weeks now. I think when I started it, there were 2 or 3 episodes out, and that's been difficult to not have that next episode to go to. So very bingeable, I imagine.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to highlight here: the music to this show is so good. Mm-hmm. It's this bizarre. It's like if you've seen Under the Skin, it kind of sounds like that a little bit in some places. It's this, I don't know, sporadic, crazy, uncomfortable music. It reminds me of Punch Drunk Love meets Under the Skin.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Punch Drunk Love, like the way that score helps drive the suspense and tension in that film.
Yeah, and just really keeps it moving to where you're just, I don't know, constantly nervous about what characters are doing, where they're going to go next, and like what decisions they'll make when they get there.
Yeah, and I love that. Gosh. Yeah, I love that while having all of that feeling of like kind of keeping you on edge and unnerved and this sort of sense of impending doom, the show does actually end up being quite funny sometimes too. Mm-hmm. Like I think the humor really works too and doesn't feel out of place. Like they balance it really well.
I agree. I think Steve Zahn is particularly very good at balancing drama with like just lighthearted goofballness that he's known for. I don't know. I think this is my favorite Steve Zahn performance, I have to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you like it and are happy about it because,
Yeah, thanks for the recommendation, man. I kept hearing about it, but it wasn't until you started talking so enthusiastically about it that I decided to jump on this train. And I'm so glad I did because I just can't stop thinking about it. I'm sad it's over, and I'm glad there's going to be a season 2 with new cast and new location.
Yeah. We'll see what they tackle in that one because it'll be very different from this. I guess if it's also White Lotus, it may be another resort in a different location. Also
That's
called the White Lotus.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my understanding of what season 2 is supposed to be.
Well, great. I'm in. I'm sold.
As am I.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on, Chris, I believe you watched something this week as well.
Yeah, mine was much shorter. I do have to say. I'm going to watch The White Lotus. You guys really plugged that, and I've got to get on that. So I'm excited to watch it.
Oh, dude, I think you're going to really like it. I honestly do. It seems right up your alley.
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking forward to it. But what I have been watching is, Disney's basically always taking my money now. Like what I like to do with the subscription services is usually like a TV show will come out, and I'll subscribe to it, and then I'll cancel it because, there's not anything really coming up. But Disney's been really great about releasing their stuff in such a way that I can't cancel it because there's always something new coming out that I want to watch. And I think probably like the most experimental thing that they've done thus far is the What If series, and I've actually really enjoyed it. Now, what the What If series is like, it's taking the Marvel Cinematic Universe and, like changing one small decision in maybe one of the movies. Like in the first one, Agent Carter becomes Peggy Carter becomes Captain Carter. She gets the serum instead of Steve Rogers, and so it's just interesting how it kind of changes a little bit. I've enjoyed it. I don't think it's my favorite thing that Marvel's put out. I think, especially on the Disney Channel, Loki probably takes that. But the What If series has been fun, and I like exploring these interesting avenues that could have happened if like one small thing had changed. Justin and Mike, have you guys watched this?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have watched the first 2 episodes as well, and here's what I will say about it. It's also not my favorite thing, but I think my biggest problem well, first of all, sidebar, the animation is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really visually impressive show, and I can't wait to see how the animation just gets better and better as the budget increases and they get better at it and all this stuff. But it's a unique type of animation that I think really works for what this is. My biggest problem, however, with the show is that so far the first 2 episodes have been tackling like the movies. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say which ones. Okay, so it's what if Peggy Carter became, the first Avenger? And then what if T'Challa, who is Black Panther in the movies, was Star-Lord instead of whatever Chris Pratt's character's name is in Guardians 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem I have with all of that is that these are only 30-minute episodes. And so I find a lot of these changes to be interesting in concept, but not particularly executed in a satisfying way.
I don't think I necessarily...
Because
go ahead.
Well, I feel like they're covering too much ground, too much plot gets skipped over, and not enough to where the character development seems satisfying to me.
Yeah.
Especially in the second episode. They take some big swings in the second episode and really change the MCU as we know it. And that could be really cool, but that 30-minute episode could have been 3 or 4 episodes.
Right.
And I think would have made a stronger end product because, villains are friends and friends are villains, and I don't know. I have a hard time seeing how this one change can escalate to all these different things.
Yeah.
And I know they do because it's written. It's not bad. There's no plot hole in it, but it just feels very rushed to me.
I think you're not necessarily wrong. Where I'm not bothered by it because I think it leans really heavily on us already knowing these things, right? So Peggy Carter, I think
Peggy Carter episode worked better for me.
Yeah,
because there were less changes. The changes I could understand. It was more like the movie. The second one starts getting bonkers.
Yeah, for me it was the opposite. Peggy Carter didn't work as well for me because it hits so many of the same beats as the movie. I wanted to see it diverge even further. And that may be why I like the second one, because it does diverge very much from what we already know. And I don't necessarily have a problem with some of the villains being friends, like I think you did. It'd be interesting to talk further about that, but that's, I think, a spoiler enough that we shouldn't talk about it right now.
Yeah, there's one in particular where there's a scene in the second episode where a major villain is like, oh man, I'm not a major villain anymore because I had a really great conversation with T'Challa. And it's like, is T'Challa that good of a talker? I didn't see that in Black Panther or Civil War or any of the Avengers movies. It's like, why is he so much better at being Star-Lord than Chris Pratt was?
He is a lot better at it, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like the universe would have been a better place if Peter Quill, that's his name, Chris Pratt never went to space. Because apparently he makes terrible decisions and everything is terrible now. But if T'Challa had done it, it's like, what is this guy, a motivational speaker? I don't get it. So
for the record,
I wanted more.
Peter Quill does make pretty bad decisions.
He does.
And I think T'Challa, I like that. I like that change. And I bought into it. So
I could like it. I just want to know, I want that. I want to see that scene, that conversation that's so compelling that to all these people to where like they're in different circumstances.
Right.
You know, there's some interesting stuff in there, but like I just really wanted to dive into like how'd we get there?
Yeah, and I imagine we're going to get a What If Season 2, or maybe these things will branch out into the movies if they're popular enough. I'm not sure, you know, with Loki and how things may be
there's a
changing.
multiverse situation happening in the MCU now. So technically, like, if they, you know, I think everyone has heard the rumors that they're bringing the other Spider-Man into the new Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think they're really leaning into the multiverse stuff. So sky's the limit, I guess.
Yep, it should be interesting.
Yeah.
So it's technically canon in that sense, I think, in the sense that if you want to watch every single Marvel property ever put to screen, you could say that's part of the multiverse. It seems like.
I think from my perspective, having not seen it yet, and I don't know that I will, because my issue with just the show conceptually, the reason that I'm not very interested in it, is what Mike is describing. Like if they told me that the concept of the show is, you know, we're going to take one season and explore the events of the MCU with one small change and extrapolate that through an entire season's worth of content, I would find that way more interesting than running with something for an episode and then being done with it in 30 minutes. Like I feel like it just sounds completely uninteresting to me.
Yeah, and what I would say,
I think they're all going to connect. I don't
is,
think each episode's like a standalone.
Yeah, so I think my theory is that eventually all these things are going to connect somehow. Like the What If universe will connect, and we'll get our own like Avengers team, but with people in different areas. They are one-offs right now, but I think by the end of the season, we're going to see like a cohesive season type of thing.
Well, it'll be interesting because it seems like the more changes they make, it'll be like a butterfly effect, where eventually they will have to start spending more time if they're going to keep tackling the movies as we know them. Like so far, we've gotten Guardians and First Avenger, right? But if they keep following like one episode per MCU movie, but alternately, the butterfly effect is going to start adding up to where they're going to have to start getting really different. Or, I don't know, it's going to be like a weird line they have to walk, you know?
Yeah, and that's all part of what intrigues me about the show, like what happens next, you know, in this, because I just find the whole concept fun.
Yeah, well, y'all let me know.
Go on.
Y'all let me know if that is worthwhile in the end, and that's how it ends up being, and then I will watch it.
Sounds good.
I also think this is another series that I think I will enjoy more if I wait to the end and binge it.
Yeah, that's probably a good example.
I don't find it satisfying to be like, oh, the new What If. Let me tune in for 30 minutes and then be like, okay, it was that.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, so, I don't know. It's not awful. I'm not trying to say I hate it, but I need more from it, I think, before I commit to saying it's good.
Yeah, and I think a good, like, litmus test is, like, they sent out 3 episodes to everybody, you know, like all the reviewers and stuff, right? So oftentimes, like, they send out like enough to get the hook in, right? So that the reviewers get enough of a taste. So I think see what next week brings, and then you can like kind of decide, you know, because that's kind of what that's what they decided a good chunk of the movie was, or a good example of the series was going to be, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So. I agree. I will keep watching, but maybe not week to week unless it's like maybe I'll watch the next one because you said the first 3 were sent out to critics, so I'll see how I feel. But yeah, anything else we want to say about What If?
Not me.
Nope.
All right, cool. So, Justin, what is the last thing we have to talk about in News on the March?
Yeah, so the last thing, it's basically going over a big news announcement that Criterion Collection did alongside the November 2021 releases. And it's been a while since we've kind of gone over a whole month's release slate. So I don't know if we want to necessarily go over each one, but the big news for anybody who hasn't been paying attention is that Criterion has announced their first round of 4K releases.
This is exciting.
Yeah, they're stepping out and above and beyond the Blu-ray now. They're still making Blu-rays, they're still offering them, but they are moving up into the 4K game, which I think not even that long ago there were rumors that they had no plans to do that.
Yeah, that's why this news caught me off guard, is because I was not expecting them to do that. I think I even heard like criticism of, physical 4K releases, but
yeah, I think
I'm happy that I misunderstood.
Yeah, I think a few weeks ago there was a quote saying that Criterion was getting ready to go into 4K, and their first 4K film would be a notable movie from within the last 30 years, which, to get into those releases, that would be Mulholland Drive.
Yes, which is extremely exciting. I'm so glad I do not own the Blu-ray for Mulholland Drive.
I can't be in that boat with you, unfortunately. But then the other two 4K releases are Menace to Society from the Hughes brothers, and the big one, in a way, is Orson Welles' Citizen Kane. It's getting the Criterion treatment.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Which is exciting, but that cover has been pretty controversial online, I've seen.
It has. It's all black with just a K, and then like the name and Orson Welles' name on it. And
yeah,
it's pretty minimal.
It is minimal. I'm actually one of the people who aggressively dislike it.
Okay.
I think it's arguably the worst cover they've ever put out.
Whoa.
I can't name a worse one, can you?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of covers. There's over 1,000.
There are.
To consider.
There are. And I don't know them all. I'm not intimately familiar with every one of them. But
yeah,
even saying that, I feel like this is subpar for even their weaker stuff.
I think that it isn't very arguable that it's not the lowest effort that they've put into one, right? I think that is something maybe a lot of people could agree on. Whether or not that means it's bad or good, I think is then a little more up to debate, right?
Well, considering it's Criterion, I would say minimal effort, even if they painstakingly went over that K and tried to make it the perfect K. I feel like the appearance of minimal effort is not something you want from a Criterion release. That's the opposite of what Criterion should evoke, right? Like, part of what makes them so awesome is that every time you get a Blu-ray, you're like, this is the best version of this movie I could get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the most effort made towards making the film look good, the best special features, and cover art that was, thought out. And I don't think that last one, the box is checked on this one, personally speaking.
Chris, your thoughts?
I don't have feelings as strong as Mike on this.
I mean, I'll still buy it.
Yeah. I think I'm not as offended by it, but I do think I could see something better maybe. My favorite though is putting three of these together. I think all the memes of that are pretty funny.
Like how people are gonna mess with it on the Barnes and Noble shelves and stuff.
Putting the KKK together. I have heard though, and I don't know if this is true or not, but like all the discs will, like, one disc will have the A on it, and then the one will have the N on it. I don't know if that's true or not, but that would be
like all the different pieces.
It would spell out Kane.
Will spell out Kane.
And all the discs will. So like the discs inside the box. And do we know how many discs are going to be inside? I don't think so.
Well, there would need to be at least 4 for that to work.
Yeah,
probably find out. I think. Well, it's the 4K editions are going to have the 4K disc and the Blu-ray in there, so that's at least 2.
Yeah. So I mean,
but I don't know. 4 discs. It says 4 discs.
Oh, does it?
Well, there you go. It sounds like they're probably going to do that then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's not my favorite cover, I'll say that, but I'm not so upset about it. How about you, Justin? What do you think?
I think in its own way, it's bold. Like, maybe that's controversial.
For that K?
What?
Is that what you mean? That's bold?
I think just the overall design to go so simple
I know what you meant.
In its own way is bold. To take the greatest film of all time.
Very minimalist, yeah.
And then... Well, that's up to opinion whether it's the greatest film of all time, but, it's often up there.
Right.
And to just go so minimal with it is kind of countering what you might expect.
I agree. I think my last thing I'll say about it is, like I've said with a lot of the covers that I have been less than excited about in the past, I don't know that it feels representative of the film itself, like the tone and the vibe the film gives off.
Yeah.
So.
It also has that effect of the more I look at it, the more I start to lose the fact that I'm looking at a K. It's like the thing that I think they talk about it in Ted Lasso, but where you say a word over and over and it loses its meaning and it just becomes a sound.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't understand that in Ted Lasso, and I don't know what you mean now either.
That's never happened to you, where you say a word over and over again, and you start to realize how weird it is, and that it's just kind of a sound, and it loses its meaning.
Not the loses its meaning part. I mean, I've said words and realized how weird the word sounds sometimes, but I don't know this whole losing the meaning thing.
Yeah, it becomes like just noise as opposed to, and it disconnected to the meaning of what you're trying. I don't know. I've done that before a lot.
Yeah, well, this is happening with this K. The more I look at it, the more I see an arrow pointing left next to a line, like a straight up and down line.
All right.
And yeah, I don't know if that's intentional. Probably not.
All right. Well,
but I am excited about these 4K releases. I'm excited that they're getting in. I don't know that they're getting rid of their DVD releases, but it's worth noting that none of the November announcements, including the ones that are just Blu-rays, because there were two La Strada and the Once Upon a Time in China box set that were announced that were only being released in Blu-ray and not 4K. But none of the November 2021 releases have DVD versions listed.
oh,
Yeah.
So they may be getting out of the DVD game entirely. Maybe
probably
not.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Why
ask you
not,
guys,
I
do you guys
suppose.
both have 4K setups?
No, but
No.
I will as soon as I can find a PS5.
Yeah. I have a 4K TV, and then I either am going to buy a PS5 at some point or just get a 4K player, because I recently bought a Nintendo Switch instead of a PS5 because that was easier to get a hold of.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a 4K setup, and I'm not even particularly close to it right now. But so while it's exciting that they're going to be there, I think it's still going to be a while before I start purchasing 4K DVDs.
Yeah, and
Right,
I think they'll ease the transition like they're doing with these, and having the packages include a Blu-ray as well.
Yeah, it makes
that's what they
sense.
did when they first started doing Blu-ray. A lot of those early editions
that's
were
more-
Blu-ray and DVD.
That's most 4K releases anyway now. I think they all usually come with a Blu-ray.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can buy it for the future and still be able to watch it in the now.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And one other thing, are you guys, so I guess the price point's going to be $59.99. How do you guys feel about that?
Ugh.
Yeah.
It depends on the disc. Like the Mulholland Drive one is only $49.95.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So that one's like $10 above the Blu-ray price. And then, yeah, you're right. The Citizen Kane is a big box set that has 4 discs compared to Mulholland Drive's 2 disc. And that one is $20 more than Blu-ray. But actually, its Blu-ray disc is more than normal too. So I think that's kind of an anomaly.
Well, probably a whole lot of effort was put into this movie,
Yeah.
so they got to make
Probably.
their money back.
Yeah. Yeah. Menace to Society is the $49.95 price tag. So that's not as expensive as the Citizen Kane. So that's, I guess, like a special sort of box set that's a little more expensive. But generally speaking, it'll be $10 more than the Blu-ray price for the 4K.
Yeah. The other,
That sounds like Criterion.
yeah. I'd probably wait till the half off anyways. I don't think I've bought a Criterion movie when it's not on sale in quite some time, when it's not half off.
Yeah.
I think I bought something to watch for the podcast because I wanted to watch it, in a good version and didn't want to risk like the quality of the Amazon rental or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Boyhood, which actually was not for this podcast. It was for the Cinemas podcast. But also for this one, way back when we first started, we guested on another podcast called Criterion Now, and we watched Barry Lyndon for that one. And that one I went and just bought full price. But that's probably the only 2 times I've ever done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have anything else we want to say about these releases?
Nope. Exciting news.
It is exciting news. So, All right, I guess we'll be looking forward to that come November. All right,
Yep.
Now let's get into our main review for Minding the Gap.
Let's go. Let's skate there.
Take one.
I'm making this film because I saw myself in your story.
I always felt like I didn't fit in with my family.
My parents ran this very controlling house. I ran away a lot.
Skateboarding is more of a family than my family.
How did you get disciplined?
I mean, well, they call it child abuse now, but life might be moving too fast.
We have to fully grow up, and it's gonna suck. When you're a kid, you just do, you just act. And then somewhere along the line, everyone loses that.
I knew you had some huge weight on you. Skateboarding meant more to you. It was kind of a life or death thing.
I remember hearing screaming coming from your room, and it was like really, really unnerving.
One of the last things I said to my dad was that I hate you.
You can't just have a child and abandon them. Life doesn't work like that.
I just don't want him to grow up like me. I just want to hide. I just want to run away. That's what the drinking is about.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I need to just move on.
I wish you could. I wish then I can do over.
I could seriously be on the verge of having a mental breakdown, but as long as I'm able to go skate, I'm completely fine.
All right, so as always with our Criterion films, they are films that typically have been out for a while. This one hasn't been out that long. It's only been a few years, but it has been out a few years. It's not this year's release, so we will not be doing our spoiler-free section of the review like we do for our newer films. So we're going to jump straight into talking about the film. Could include spoilers. Not that there's really anything too spoilery for this film, but if you don't want to know anything, stop listening now, pause this podcast, go watch Minding the Gap, and then come back and finish listening to this episode.
Absolutely. So, Minding the Gap. It was directed by Bing Liu. It stars Kier Johnson, Bing Liu, and Zach Mulligan. The IMDb synopsis says, 3 young men bond together to escape volatile families in their Rust Belt hometown as they face adult responsibilities. Unexpected revelations threaten their decade-long friendship.
I think that synopsis is very off base, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, it's weird.
Yeah, it is, but it's short.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to
Be vague.
I guess be vague, but also just throw in some hooks that don't really exist in the film.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That last little bit.
Yeah, it's mainly the
threw me
last
for a
line.
loop.
There's no and
Unexpected revelations.
yeah, no unexpected revelations, and I'm not sure there's a whole lot in there. Maybe a tiny bit of like their friendships being tested, and that's not
Well,
really
I mean,
part of the
I think
movie.
I know what it means though, and what it's referring to. You know,
Yeah, like yeah,
It's both there.
I don't think anyone would be confused by that.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think the statement's
Okay.
untrue. It may be exaggerating a bit, though.
yeah.
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
There
That's,
you go.
That's what I think it is. I guess I feel like that's not really what the movie's about,
Yeah.
but
Right.
yeah. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah. So even though I chose this film in the poll, and it won, I don't want to go first. I know, Justin, you have loved this film the longest, or liked it. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You
But
can.
you're the one who tried to get us to watch this when it came out, and obviously we didn't, but we have now. So go into detail more about why you're so into this movie.
Wait,
Yeah,
was this
sure.
on your top 10 list?
It was,
that
yeah.
your-
So
yeah, okay,
you're
good.
taking the words out of my mouth, really.
Sorry, yeah.
Because no, it's all good. That segues me into talking about it very not smoothly, because now I'm rambling about other things and how I'm segueing into it. But yes, it was on my top 10 films of the year list, the year that it came out, which I think was 2018. I want to say.
Yes.
Man,
but
time flies.
yeah, it was number 4 or number 3, I believe, of the year for me. I really, really love this film a lot. This is my third time to watch it. I watched it once when it first came on Hulu, and then again several weeks later with my wife, because I was like, you have to watch this doc. It's really great. And she seemed interested in it. So I watched it then. And then, of course, I was very excited that it was nominated for an Oscar. I don't think it won Best Documentary, but it was nominated. And then even more excited when Criterion announced that they were releasing it. And I bought it the first chance I could, as we talked about earlier. Waited for the 50% off sale, of course. But very excited. So I was really excited to revisit this. And I think it's a really, really great documentary for a lot of reasons. But I think the main one is the access and the honesty that the director gets with the other characters. I feel like whatever he did when he worked with these people or set up like the parameters of what they were going to do, he got them to agree and continue to be very honest and open and not really hold off very much, or at least it doesn't seem like they held off very much and didn't allow him to film certain things, and
right.
I think just that access, that honesty, and the things that they talk about and the way that they talk about them are very straightforward and moving to me. And, a lot of people talk about this as potentially like a skateboarding documentary. And I like that skateboarding is kind of our gateway in, and this sort of backdrop to it. But I like that the skateboarding isn't really about skateboarding. It's about the emotion that you get from skateboarding and the release and the passion for skating, and the way that it breaks up these passages in the film and really enhances the emotion and the state that we're at in the story. Always tends to be enhanced by these skating montages that happen. And through editing and all of the score and everything, I think Bing Liu as director really just knocked it out of the park in terms of including a lot of the skateboarding footage and having it be very beautiful and very like poetic in a way, but not making it feel like random skateboarding footage that doesn't have anything to do with anything else. I think it's always there to accent what's going on elsewhere. But overall, I'm really drawn to coming of age, slice of life. I got mixed up there. Coming of age, slice of life films in general are ones that tend to be my favorites. And that's what this is. And it's a documentary, and it's very natural and very real. And I just, it moves me so much. I love the topics that they discuss. It's all about where we come from and our home life and how that affects us, and will that make us end up a certain way? That's kind of maybe the biggest question that the film asks is, are we a product of our upbringing and where we come from? And can we change that? Can we do something different? Or are we destined to follow the paths that we were put on with our families, or particularly father figures in this film? And I find that to be a very interesting question that they tackle without being too judgmental as a the perspective of the filmmaker, and maybe not being too in your face about it. And yeah, it moves me a lot. This film actually makes me cry in several places. So, slice of life, skateboarding, beautiful cinematography, and making me cry. That's like it's
the perfect
that's everything. It's everything, right?
That's a Terrence Malick crown.
That's right. So I will leave it off there, because I'm sure we'll get into other stuff. And I don't know who wants to go next. Mike, you want to go now?
Yeah, I chose the film, so I guess I should.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I agree with everything you're saying. I didn't cry multiple times, but I did tear up. Well, that's not true. A couple times. Yeah. So there you go. Here, I think you're right. It's definitely not about skateboarding, but the skateboarding has the effect of helping us understand their friendship and showing the chemistry they have with each other in this really playful, fun way, right? So that way we believe their friendship. You know what I mean? Like the director, Bing Liu, is it looks like he has footage going back from when they were kids, you know, that he splices throughout the whole movie. It looks like he's always filming and always has been, even before likely that this documentary was ever gonna be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you believe their friendship and you understand it and you feel it and you appreciate it. You like their friendship, and all of these guys seem to have pretty troubled home lives. And so that's what really binds them together, and you really get a sense of that in the film. And you get a sense of growing up together. You know, as someone who's been friends with a lot of the same people since high school and still talk to them now, I really identified with the progression through the years. And seeing these people change and in some cases become worse, in some cases become better, you know, and you really start to feel for these kids and these young men and women and featured in this movie like you would people you went to high school with or grew up with or that you were friends with. You want them to figure their stuff out and get on the right track. Mm-hmm. And you're terrified they won't. And some of the stuff they tackle in this is just, man, it's hard to you know, listen to, hard to watch. And I am lucky in the sense that, like, I come from a very loving family, right? I can't identify with a lot of what these kids are going through. But I know people who have been hurt by family. And yeah, sometimes that can really mess you up as you grow up, especially if it's unresolved and unspoken, not talked about, you know, like that could do horrible things to people, you know? And I often wonder about, you know, some of the revelations that take place in this about, you know, some of the friends, one of them in particular. I wonder how their relationship is after the movie came out.
Yeah.
You know, does that friendship still exist? I don't know, because it's pretty brutal and honest in a way that, like you said, isn't judgmental, but it's not flattering either.
No.
And anyways, it's a beautiful film. I really enjoyed it. You know, it's almost like if it was a movie, it would be like a Richard Linklater movie where he filmed it a little bit at a time over years. You know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
If I had Boyhood vibes, you know, this would be a good companion piece to Boyhood.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'll stop there and we'll get into the whole meat of everything here in a minute. But yeah, it's just definitely worth your time. Heartbreaking, harrowing, but also hopefully uplifting at times, you know. I don't know. So, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. You know, this is a pretty great movie. One of the things, you know, all movies are miracles to some extent, but this one is more of a miracle than most. Just the fact, like Justin kind of alluded to it, but that he was able to get his subjects to be so open and honest, and I think a lot of that has to do with the friendship that they started off having, the three of them hanging out to skate, and the director filming them skating. I think this is probably like a 10, 15 year thing that was going on, and you know, like at some point it's just your friend filming you, and you've just become so used to it that you know, you've let your guard down. You know, it is pretty and fun to look at a lot of this stuff, and when I went into this, I was not expecting for it to look as good as it did, because, you know, it's documentary stuff like that, and it was also filmed by by a guy filming his other two friends, right? You know, so you don't expect it to look this good. The way these people are revealed to us is the most interesting thing. These characters, the characters of each of these, you know, they're real people, but we get to know them in such a way that they're fascinating. You know, like I want to watch more. I hope he's still filming. I hope we get Minding the Gap too, you know, because I want to spend more time and I want to get to know these people better. It's kind of like one of those TV shows that, you know, you're like, well, what happens next? You know, like, and I think it's really well put together. There are some like really great interviews, you know, that, you know, made me tear up, you know, and it's just kind of really tough to watch. But yeah, I think as a miracle movie, you know, this is one of those things that you kind of can't ever replicate, or you got lucky that everything fell into place the way it did, that, you know, he was already filming, you know, 10 years before he'd even had the idea to make the documentary. And I'm not even sure how that happened, the idea of making the documentary. So don't, you know, that's not necessarily true, but yeah, anyways, I really love this. One last thing would be, you know, Justin recommended this, you know, very highly, and I always wanted to watch it, but one of the things that kept me back was, you know, like I knew it was going to be heavy and it was going to be kind of a tough watch, you know, like from everything I had read and heard about. But I'm so glad that, and it was, but I'm so glad that I did finally get to watch it, you know, like after I was done. It's one of those movies that like I just went outside and sat and contemplated the world, you know, like, and really, you know, cinema at its best oftentimes will do that. So I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. Well, good. We all liked it. And to answer a question for you, so on the Criterion edition, they have several really good special features. One of them is an interview between Bing Liu and the girl in it, who was not listed among the actors, by the way, because her name is not on IMDb. She's not credited.
Oh, interesting.
The girlfriend?
The girlfriend, yeah. So anyways, so that's why we did not list her name, or like, because I don't have it necessarily on hand, and maybe she doesn't want to be credited for certain reasons. For sure. But anyways,
well, they mention her name in the documentary. It escapes me now.
Her name's in there, I think, but if just for whatever reason, it's not on IMDb. But anyways, one of them is an interview between Bing Liu and her, where they kind of catch up on where she is and her thoughts on being in the film and how the film turned out. Another one is,
did she become a high school counselor?
I think she was. I think so. Yeah.
At the end, it says she's working towards that. So I was hoping the interview they covered that.
They might. I don't remember exactly. But the other one that's a little more interesting is it's an interview with Bing Liu, and then there's an interview with two of the producers of the film, and they talk about the process of shooting the film and how they were watching the film in its different versions as he was shooting, and then they would shoot more and add stuff. And they talk about the inspiration, and Bing Liu had obviously been filming for a long time, but he did a project where he interviewed a bunch of different skateboarders who he had known and talked to that experienced family violence growing up. And he found it crazy that so many skateboarders that he knew came from that place and ended up being skateboarders. So he had done this project, and two of them that he had interviewed, Kier was one of them, I think, and then Zach, the other guy, was one. And that sparked the idea for this. And he dove into these two characters. He eventually narrowed it down to Kier and Zach and himself as the main three, and then also kind of the girlfriend.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't really cover Zach's life thoroughly without having her in it.
No, she's important.
Yes. Just like, just like all the surrounding family members of the people he focuses on, they need to be there to a certain degree to have a well-rounded picture of what these kids came from.
And I think she's particularly interesting to the director Bing Liu because, like he interviews his mom at some point, right? And so he's fascinated, like, why would you stay? Like, why, I find that really interesting, that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. There's
totally.
those threads that connect with everybody. And I think they've, found those in shooting, there's, like you said, Bing Liu and his mom, and that leads him to be interested in the girlfriend character. But then also, they interview Kiera's mom at times too, especially there's that interview during the time where she's dating a guy that Kiera says he doesn't like, and you have that dude off camera just yelling at the mom.
Yeah, time's up.
Like your 5 minutes is up.
Yeah, and the way he he holds on that, like, her expression at the end of that, like after all of that kind of goes down, and it's but there's those through lines that he's interested in, and he explores with these two different characters. You kind of have to have them.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not so, like, the subject matter, when it starts to get into, like, the idea that their friend could be physically violent towards women.
Zach,
you're right. It never seems super judgmental. It always seems, well, I don't know. They even had that one conversation where Kier, he basically straight up asks, like, do you think Zach could hit, like, a woman? And he's like, man, I don't think so. Like, and then the interview with his girlfriend says a different story, and then eventually you have that interview with Zach himself where he's like trying to admit it without really admitting it.
Yeah, he's spending a lot of time justifying it. Yeah. And while I don't know that he actually comes out and says, yes, I do this.
He says, in theory, in that scenario, it makes sense, is kind of what he says. He
says something like, sometimes a woman just needs to be put in her place or something like that when they're acting crazy, and kind of justifies it, but not.
He doesn't
I don't
even
think
say
he
something
justifies
like that.
it. He's trying to justify it.
He goes more of like a roundabout way, but yeah, ultimately he tries to justify the scenario and the situation under the perfect circumstances. Sometimes it's okay to slap or whatever, but yeah, it's disturbing. That's a side of your friends that if I have any friends that are like that, that's certainly not a side they've shown, and that I don't think people openly show.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially not while they're being filmed. So the whole time, it's so matter of fact, I guess, that it doesn't seem demonizing. It almost seems tragic instead.
Yeah. Early on in the movie, I was, I think you're on Zach's side. And then he, like, about halfway through, like, around the time he goes to Denver, you're like, oh, he's on a downward spiral. He's not doing well, and I think that's around the time that she, like, admits the abuse and everything. And you are pulling for him, like, even though he's done these things that are, you don't do those things, you're still pulling for him, and you want him to get his shit together, and I think we've all had friends like that, and I've probably been that friend at some point, but, like, you want him to get his shit together. I should also, I've never hit a woman. I've been the friend that needs to get his shit together. Let me just put that out there real quick.
Caveat.
Yeah. But, you're pulling for him, and you want him to do that. And it's really all in the setup too, I think, because at the beginning you're not, like, he's not demonized ever, and so, like, you never hate him. I think is where we're at.
He's got a kid, and they're starting a family, and you can tell that he's trying to do the right thing, and he's willing to work, as far as we can tell. Like, he's doing roofing, which seems like hard, terrible work, but he's doing the right things in a manner of speaking to take care of his family. And I think you're kind of just rooting for him, and that while he clearly drinks a lot, you know, that he's trying, you know, and I think even after the bad revelations about him, like you want that to turn around, because you spend so much time in this film asking those questions of, you know, have we all been pushed together into skateboarding and into like friendship because of our paths, our pasts and the paths that we've been on. And like, you don't want him to go down that same path, because then you also have that sort of, how is his kid going to turn out looming over everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're definitely rooting for him, even though I think he's certainly flawed.
Yeah. And I actually find that really interesting with Keir too, because, and this may even be more fascinating, but it is, you know, Keir was abused. Like his dad, you know, beat the shit out of him. He says that several times. And yet he's, you know, like he loves his dad so much, and he's got this like conflict in him. And now, like earlier on in the movie, he was like a little bit more upset with his dad or angry. And, you know, like the last thing he said, I believe, was like, I hate you. But as the movie goes on, he like wishes his dad was there. And so there's like this really interesting dynamic between, you know, like loving your abuser, you know, in those situations, you know, like nothing is simple. You can't, it's often, you know, like, why does that lady stay with the husband? And, you know, that it explores it. And oftentimes from the outside, you're like, just leave him, you know, like he's hitting you, just leave him. And it's like the answer is so easy for us, but in truth, you know, there's so many more layers to it. And Keir really exemplifies that example, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of conflicting, complex things in this, you know, even, you know, down to like the opening scene where the very first shot is, I think it's Zach, he's climbing these pipes on the side of a building, and they're climbing this fire escape, and they're going to go up, it looks like, to skate a spot. And you start out with this sort of image of rebellious skateboarders breaking the law, or, you know, not worrying about no trespassing signs. They are trespassing. And then, you know, halfway up, they're like, okay, this is too tall and I'm scared and I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
You know? And so there's a lot of that sort of thing going on in the film, where they set up this idea that, you know, we may have preconceived notions, or, you know, this idea in this case of like rebellious skateboarders, but then taking it down to like, oh, well, maybe they're not what you expect. They're not the like tough guy, overly masculine, rebellious skateboarders that you might have in your head when you're watching this opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're able to admit, like, this is too tall, I'm scared. I'm going back down.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the whole movie really humanizes them in a way to where even when they are doing things you don't agree with, or they're spiraling downward, or whatever, you understand that there's like a deeper sadness and a sort of flailing, trying to get your life together. And it's really incredible, I think, what the legwork that Bing Liu does. Like the clips he chooses to show us, the passage of time that you can feel, you know, the questions he asks, and his non-judgmental attitude when he asks them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to praise him just a little bit here in the sense that I think that obviously he went through some horrible stuff that is addressed in the movie, where he confronts his mom, and there's that scene where he's talking to Zach, and he's like, well, he asks Zach basically like, what do you think? How do you think I'm like spinning my life to try to like in the path that I'm on, you know? And Zach basically admits that like they're both handling their pain in different ways, whereas Bing is able to transform it into something productive and meaningful and hopefully help him grow past and move beyond, you know? Whereas Zach doesn't have that creative outlet. you know, and he is sort of just living life and trying to latch on to something, you know?
Yeah. Or he's spending plenty of time trying to escape and forget about the reality of everything that he's been through and everything that's going on. I mean, he says that at one point, right? And that's what the drinking is about.
Yeah. Well, and at a certain point, he has this attitude of like he wanted things to get as bad as they could possibly get. Like he wanted to just push it further because what else? He didn't know what else to do. What else are you going to do when you feel that way, you know?
And he kind of feels like that's what he deserves, right? You know, he doesn't deserve any better than the worst.
Right. Yeah. And there's a certain conflict within him that he talks about where he's like, you know, I go through times where I'm like, I have to stay away from this kid. I'm not fit to be around him. And then there's other times where he's like, that's my child and I want to, you know, do what's right. But, you know, it's also this struggle of like, is what's right removing yourself from the equation, you know?
Yeah.
It's really fascinating and interesting, and I don't know. I don't know that interviews like this happen very often, because I don't know that your best friend of a decade or whatever, or one of your best friends who films so much that you let your guard down. I don't know that scenario happens too often to people, right?
Right.
To where they can be this open and honest, because they're always going to have their guard up because they don't want to look bad. But their friendship is what makes this documentary what it is, both in the sense that you grow to love them as a unit. You feel like one of their friends. You feel like you know them. And every time they get a new job or something starts going, like when Kier got a car and got like a waiter job and moved out of the dishwashing position, I was like, oh, all right, way to go, man. Like, I want this for you, you know? And then when you find out his mom is no longer dating that asshole, you're like, oh, good. Whew. You know, and so like every time something good happened to one of them, I felt happy. Like one of my friends did, you know, dodged a bullet or whatever. And then whenever they aren't in a good place, you're just like, God, what is he even doing? You know? And I don't know. It's a way that like you wouldn't feel in a normal movie with characters, even if like they tried to show you the passage of time like this, you know? It's just, there's this real honesty about it that you feel like a fly on the wall for a lot of this stuff. And to great effect, you know? It's very emotional and rewarding.
Yeah, it's the legwork that the film does, you know? Like, I don't think a narrative film could really do that much legwork. Maybe a TV series over several seasons.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
but this film manages to do it in an hour and a half.
Right. There's something like near the end when it starts to kind of show each one of them in like a montage form through the years, like starting with their earliest appearances through modern day.
Yeah.
And you see hair change, you see physiques change, you see all kinds of attire change, you know?
Mm-hmm. Camera quality.
And, yeah, image quality, everything. And you start to see, you really feel that passage of time, like you went on a journey with these kids, and for better or worse, you know, they are products of their environment. And I think Bing is also very interested in not continuing a cycle. You know, he seems like he really wants to be fair, and he wants to grow as a human, and he wants his friends to grow, and he doesn't want to demonize, and that comes across, you know. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than it just really moved me quite a bit. You were spot on recommending this all these years ago, Justin.
Thank you. I'm 2 for 2 with this and White Lotus, aren't I?
Yeah, you're on a streak right now.
The section that you mentioned where we're cutting back and forth between Zach and I think he's sitting out on the stairs or something in like apartment complex, and that's when I think he's talking about what you mentioned, Mike, about, you know, I'm scared of how this kid's going to turn out, you know, or what effect I'm going to have on him, you know, so I want to not be around him, but at the same time I love him, you know. And we're intercutting that with Kier looking for his dad and finding his dad in like the cemetery, and then we're back to Bing interviewing his mom. And that section is that's the part that like really gets me choked up every time I watch it. that section is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, that section where Bing talks to his mom and she says that, like, you know, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say, you know. I hope this film helps you heal, you know.
Yeah, she's owning it. It breaks my heart when she said, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want to do. If doing this film makes you happy and can help you be happy and be okay, then like I will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
because you can never undo what you've done, right? You can never. But there is a certain amount of understanding that I think everyone in this film has.
Mm-hmm.
Even Zach's girlfriend, right? Because she doesn't come from a good home either. I believe she talks about being beaten by her dad, you know?
Yeah. That's why she doesn't go back.
Yeah, basically being adopted by her aunt.
I really like that story.
And then like they adopt her, they take care of her, and she's like, well, now I have an example of what I want my family to be like, you know?
Yeah, I like the story where she talks about she first moves in with them, and the aunt, every time she goes to bed, she gets hugged, and at first she's like, don't touch me, you know, like, this is gross. And then at some point she's like, I'm going to bed, it's time for my hug, you know, like she's looking forward to it. You know, like I really thought that was a good moment.
Yeah, and there's lots of little moments like that scattered throughout, right? Where it's just this little moment of like a good relationship, like how much that can really help heal. Maybe not erase, not make you forget, not to belittle anything traumatic that happened in the past, but there's the ever marching, you know, sense of time, right? Like it's always moving and moving forward, and at a certain point you got to grow. Whether you grow in a good way or a bad way, it really depends on, you know, your surroundings and all kinds of stuff. But you have 3 examples here put on display, 4 if you include her, and most of them seem to really grow and change for the better. Even Zach seems to be at the end of the movie in a stable relationship and doing his part, but you know, he still has his demons, I assume. So yeah, it's just this very real, brutally honest, like Justin says, slice of life. You know, it's like a serious Jackass. You know what I mean? Like when you watch Jackass, you get the sense that all these guys are friends, and that's fun to watch. Like the camaraderie and like the true chemistry on display. You know, and since it's being filmed, we're seeing real conversations, real laughter, real good times, and then in this case of this movie, real bad times. You know?
Yeah.
But anyone have anything else about Minding the Gap they want to talk about?
Not really. I think the only last thing, and maybe we touched on a little bit, but just I appreciate the way that this film and these characters are so open and honest and like willing to be emotional and sort of, you know, I think Bing Liu gives them a place to say that it's okay to be emotional and it's okay to like cry on camera and be vulnerable and like as males, like 3 male characters displaying that and putting that on film, and it's really moving. I think that's just kind of an important thing that, you know, these kids being the age that they are when they were raised and when I was raised, like that the things that they do on camera in terms of being vulnerable and crying and being open, maybe would be seen as being not masculine. And
sure.
So I appreciate the perspective on that this movie provides. The idea of, you know, it's okay.
Yeah. I agree, and I hope one day there is some sort of follow-up to this. That would be really interesting, because like I said at the beginning, after a lot of the brutal honesty on display in this, and after all the notoriety the film got, I wonder how the relationships are holding up now, you know?
Right.
I know he's making another documentary, or he's made one that I think premiered at Sundance this year. And also this Criterion edition, which I haven't dove into this yet, but there is a commentary track with the film with Bing, Kier, and Zach.
Oh.
which is really interesting to me.
Recorded
That's something
together or separately?
I don't know. I haven't checked it out yet, but I think it's recorded together.
Yeah, I
That
think
would
it's
be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I think this DVD or Blu-ray is worth the purchase just for those special features to kind of further dive into what happens after the movie. And I think this is definitely on my list for the next half-off sale.
Nice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Anything else? I'm done.
I'm done.
Yeah, I think I'm done.
Watch it. Don't be like us, like Mike and I, and keep putting it off. Like, sit down,
listen to
watch it.
Justin.
Yeah. Maybe like plan some, personal time after the movie where you can just kind of like sit and think about things. And then, you can go watch What If.
There you go.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Guess that's a good escape.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now that we're done with that, we need to do our choices for the next Criterion poll for our next episode. So, Mike, do you want to tell us what our theme was for this poll?
Yeah, so we didn't really have one. So we just decided to do blind spots for Chris's first Criterion episode back. I thought it would just be more fun to just choose movies we haven't seen that want to.
Yeah, our blind spots. It's kind of a common one we do, but I like that one because it always helps me knock off a film that usually I haven't seen.
Yeah, totally. So, that being said, Justin, what is your choice for your blind spot?
So my choice is a film that actually just recently got released on Criterion for the first time. But it is an older film, and it's from Andrei Tarkovsky. And I really want to watch this film because I haven't really ever been able to stop thinking about Stalker after we covered it on this episode.
Yeah, same.
Which was at least a year ago. I think that might even be 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think
almost
closer to 2 for sure.
Yeah, and that film has just constantly been on my mind. I always think about it, and it's been a while since I watched Solaris, but I felt the same way after I first watched Solaris, and so I want to knock out another Tarkovsky movie. So I'm going to go with The Mirror.
Nice.
And I know nothing about it. I couldn't even tell you what it's about, and I kind of don't care.
It's about a mirror.
Same. So you're also covering one of my blind spots. Good job.
Yeah, me
Cool.
too.
All right. Hey. Yeah. So, Chris, what's your choice?
Yeah, I picked a movie. I believe this is one of Martin Scorsese's favorite movies. The Thief of Baghdad. Michael Powell helped direct it. There's like a whole bunch of people listed as directing it, but The Thief of Baghdad. It's an old 1940 British Technicolor historical fantasy film. I think it's like an Aladdin thing. I'm not 100% sure. I think there's probably a flying carpet in there too. So, let's see what Martin Scorsese's cinema is.
What he defines
that
as
sounds
cinema?
awesome. Another blind spot for me too. So
Awesome.
Yeah, also a blind
exciting.
spot for me as well.
Perfect. Now, Mike, you have to get one that's a blind spot for all of us. Keep up the trend.
All right, well, let's see. So I chose this film because it's a blind spot, and I want to see it. And also because I watched another film this year that made me really want to go back and dive into this one because it also depicts the same event. And I'm talking about A Night to Remember.
Oh.
Which is the...
I don't know that you can choose that one because we already did it on the podcast, but maybe...
Oh, that's right.
What
you
is
guys
the
did.
rule there?
Oh, crap. I forgot. That's early on.
Yeah, that was like
we started out.
episode or so.
We were going spine order.
Okay. Well, I'll have to watch that on my own time then.
Yeah.
Real
Sorry.
quick. No worries. I can pick one real fast. So the next blind spot I want to do is... Oh, here we go. Is a Lawrence Kasdan film called The Big Chill.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, I have not seen this either.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, this is another film that I have really, really wanted to see for quite some time. I've heard about it so much. I like Lawrence Kasdan. So, yeah.
Nice.
Good cast. I'm excited to hopefully watch it.
Yeah, these are blind spots for all of us, all of them. It seems, right? Or Chris, have you seen The Mirror?
I have not. I haven't seen any of these. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. I missed that. But yeah, just to recap, my choice was Tarkovsky's The Mirror. Chris was The Thief of Baghdad, and Mike's is The Big Chill. So go to our Twitter now when you're hearing this. The poll will be live, and the link will also be in our show notes. So check that out.
Awesome. Now I got to go watch A Night to Remember by myself and then listen to your episode on it.
Well, bring it up in News on the March, and we'll kind of briefly touch on it.
All right.
It's worth watching. If I remember correctly, Chris and I both really, really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Titanic like earlier this year, and I still like that movie. The movie's really good. And so I'd like to see one that's maybe a little bit more, I don't know, fact-based. I don't know. I don't know.
It's less dramatized, right?
Yeah, that's what I guess I want to say. Like more to the point.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll like it, and I look forward to talking about it when you do watch it.
Sweet.
Cool. And that does it for this episode then, right?
It does.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, listener, for listening. Thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bobscotch. And then, of course, thank you guys, Mike and Chris, for hanging out and talking Minding the Gap and other things with me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, stay tuned to this channel. Our next episode is to be decided.
Yeah, it'll probably be a newer film, but don't know which one yet.
Yeah, movie releases are strange right now, so maybe we could do The Green Knight.
Yeah. That's coming out on VOD in like a couple of days, or maybe one day as we're recording this. So
I actually think that's what we should do.
There's a showing tonight, and then tomorrow it'll be on VOD.
Yeah, there's that special screening. Did you say that's what we should do, Chris?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm making a decision.
Okay.
I'm back.
Yeah.
All right,
making
you heard it
decisions.
here first.
All right, no longer TBD. It's The Green Knight.
Nice.
All right, cool.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye.